All right, welcome back. David, on Fridays, you're a Northern Kentucky native. In Northern Kentucky, do you go to Fish Fries?
Oh, I'm Catholic, too,
Yeah,
so the
right.
answer is yes.
Where do
Fort
you
Wright
go?
Civic Club.
Fort Wright?
St. Agnes, Fort Wright, you know.
I got to mention St. Joe's Camp Springs, out where Joe's Inc. Attends. 4:30 to 7, one of the best fish fries in Northern Kentucky. So get out there tonight, or St. Agnes is going too.
That's right, Fort Wright Civic Club.
Fort Wright Civic Club.
Kennedy Avenue.
All right, David, tell us, we were talking about some things you may be doing illegally that you don't even know about when you're on a computer.
Well, and it just really mostly revolves around hacking, viruses, that sort of thing. You know, it's certainly possible that, you know, you go visit a website, some kind of software is downloaded in the background, a virus, a Trojan horse,
Right.
etc., and then you end up breaking the law. Your computer's sitting there breaking the law because, like, for example, you know, you may have software installed on your computer that turns your machine into a file server, and maybe pirated movies that if someone's burned from a DVD are being uploaded to your computer and then being shared on the internet. So technically, you know, you're in violation of the copyright law on that because you're making these things available. And you don't even know it. So there's all kinds of whacked out things like that that can happen, and really it involves, again, people having an understanding that as soon as you plug a cable into the internet, or now with wireless, as soon as you get on the internet, you're potentially exposed, and you need to at least have a basic understanding of security. You got to have some kind of antivirus software.
Like Norton or McAfee?
Norton, McAfee, AVG, they have a really good free package. I've used that, seems to work pretty good.
AVG.
Yeah, AVG. The company that makes it is Grysoft, but it's called AVG. I'm not really sure why, actually.
All right.
Pretty good one, and there are some other free ones out there. You got to have something like that. Microsoft makes something that will let you scan your computer for free from their website. You know, I wouldn't even tell you necessarily that you can rely entirely on one of these things, because what happens, unfortunately, is the people that create these things, right, as soon as Microsoft, Norton, whoever figures out there's a new virus and they figure out how to identify it and stop it, well, then they make another virus, right? So it's kind of a losing battle where you're constantly fighting people who are trying to hack in. And the question I often get asked is, well, why are people doing this sort of thing? You know, why don't they invest their time and energy in positive things? Well, it's because there's potentially, you know, some people just want to cause problems, but there's a lot of money to make in this business, because if I can put some kind of software on your machine like a keystroke logger, okay? Keystroke logger is software that literally tracks every single keystroke you make on the computer. So you turn it on, you log in, it knows the password for your computer now. And then you say, well, I think I'll go down to Fifth Third today and transfer some money over and pay my bills. Well, so you go log in, and it tracks that you went to Fifth Third, and it gets the username and password for your account at Fifth Third, and all this is being captured, and assuming that you don't have the right security mechanisms in place, it's being sent off somewhere. It might be Russia, it might be China, could be South Africa, who knows where it's going, right? And folks there are collecting this information, and they're going, oh, okay, www.53.com, not to pick on Fifth Third, the U.S. Bank. This is not a bank security issue. It's they now have a legitimate username and password. They can log into your account and steal your money. They can, you know, you enter your social security number at some point. They can now assume your identity, go get a credit card in your name, charge up a couple, you know, 10, 15,000 and disappear. Not to mention, how do you prosecute someone that's outside the United States? So, you know, most of this, unfortunately, is these people prey on the ignorance of regular, everyday folks who aren't dorks like me, don't work in this industry, and don't understand all this stuff. And
David, what about
problem?
Now, a word we see when we're on a website, particularly like a banking website or at Amazon, encryption. What is encryption?
Encryption is a technology that's basically just allows you to scramble stuff up.
Okay.
It'd be like you and I sit down. Have you ever watched I love A Christmas Story?
Yes.
Where he's waiting for his Annie Oakley or whatever it is, secret decoder ring, and he decodes the Ovaltine message, and it says, drink more Ovaltine. It's just a system where each end agrees upon some kind of mechanism to scramble up the data. And without knowing the key, you can't descramble it, or at least it's very, very difficult. I can't honestly say that it's totally impossible, but it becomes extremely, extremely difficult, because you get into a deal where, like, there's so many mathematical permutations, it would take years and years and years and years to test every one of them, even with a really powerful computer. So encryption allows you to basically scramble the information that's being sent back and forth, so that even if someone were to capture it as it's going through, they can't really use it. And, you know, most websites that provide any kind of online transactions, you know, like an Amazon where you're buying stuff online, or a banking site, is going to have encryption. And if they don't, you really shouldn't be using the site. And they'll tell you about it on there. And there's ways you can identify it. You'll usually see like a little yellow lock on your screen. Up in the browser bar up here where it says HTTP, if we cut over to the screen here, you'll see an S after that. And that's the true tail right there. When you see HTTPS up here in the left corner, you can look for that. That tells you that stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol Secure, and that the data is being encrypted. So
Good.
that's a key thing to look for. Even if you don't see any other kind of indicators, if you don't see that, even if they tell you it is, if you don't see that, it's not encrypted.
Okay, it's good to know. Hey, Dave, tell us about Libertas. What does Libertas do?
Well, we are a company that builds custom software applications, website, search engine optimization. But really the way I like to try to describe it to people is we help people save time and money, because generally we'll come in, sit down with you as a business and say, okay, what are you doing that if it were automated and it were automated right, you know, if you automate a process, a bad process, you make more mistakes faster, right? So, you know, how can you look at business processes and automate them to make them work better, faster, with less people, make it easier for customers to do business with you, that sort of thing. So that's pretty much what we do. I mean, I work in this industry every day.
Right. It's pretty cool because this industry did not exist when you and I were growing up. And it's very cool.
Certainly not in the way that it does now.
It is now, right. Yeah, there was always long big computers. And
when I graduated from college in '92, you know, the PC was still a relatively new thing. I can remember, you know, using the first version of Windows, which looks nothing like it does now. Yeah.
I remember in high school in the 70s, we were working on a computer and you had to do the cards. You had to fill out the boxes in the cards.
Fortunately for me, I came along just after punch cards.
Yeah,
you know, I'd hear the horror stories from the guys like, I had 1,000 of these, and you know, you got to put a big X on them because you trip and they go flying, and there's no way to reassemble them.
Yeah.
Thankfully, I never had that problem.
We would do just a basic division problem, you know, 25 divided by 5, and it would take a stack of cards, and if you had one out of sequence, it would mess it up. So that's
computers are still picky like that. You just don't have to deal with a giant box of cards going, now was this card number 99 or card number 103?
What's the next big thing coming up? What do you see as the next big thing for business or consumers? What about the iPad? You're not a big Apple guy, are you?
I don't think the iPad is going to have a huge impact, because really it's, you know, I'm using Dan's netbook here since we couldn't get my full-size notebook to work.
Right.
And you know, the iPad is really nothing more than sort of an oversized iPod.
Okay.
I don't really think, you know, the whole tablet computing thing hasn't really caught on yet, and I think to some degree it's because there isn't a real killer application for them. I mean, other than the fact that you have a bigger screen and it's easier to type on this.
Yeah.
And, you know, this is smaller, but less powerful than my notebook, but it's a lot bigger and less portable than an iPhone.
Yeah.
So it's kind of this weird in-between space, and unless you really need something like this, why would you buy this as opposed to just use a more portable mobile device? So I think one of the big things, I think social media is going to continue to play a big role. Something to be interesting for you to look into. Nielsen did a study.
Yeah.
And they found that when they look at trust factors of different forms of electronic advertising, social media is by far and away heads and above everything else out there. There's nothing else even close to it.
Wow. All right.
And I think it's because of the trust factor. You actually get to know people.
I want to thank you for all the time you spent on the show.
My pleasure, Pat.
You've been a great guest. Good luck to you. We'll be right back in North Kentucky Magazine.